Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a weekly podcast focusing on e-commerce topics featuring interviews with prominent people in the e-commerce space.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations by Practical E-Commerce. My name is Kerry Murdoch. Any merchant that sells physical products ships them to its customers. The cost of shipping, therefore, is material to most every e-commerce business. There's a company that offers smaller merchants discounted shipping rates that are typically available only to high-volume sellers. The company is EquaShip. Its CEO, Ron Weiner, is with us today. Well, Ron, thank you for your time today.
Great to be here, Kerry.
Ron, your company, EquaShip, offers shipping discounts to relatively low-volume e-commerce merchants, e-commerce sellers. The era of free shipping, I think most every merchant is interested in strategies for reducing shipping costs. So my first question for you today, Ron, is explain to us how your service works to get volume shipping discounts to low volume sellers, if I could say it that way.
Absolutely. Well, obviously the converging trends here, free shipping along with ever-increasing transportation costs are what created the opportunity for us. When you look at Amazon and Target and Walmart and all those folks, and how do they get to afford to do free shipping, they're using postal consolidators. And today, 1 out of 6 packages is actually delivered by the Postal Service, but it was picked up by FedEx SmartPost or UPS SurePost or Nugistics or Blue Package Delivery, one of the postal consolidators. There are 13 of them in the country now. All of them have had sort of a hard and fast rule. You got to have a certain amount of volume, say 300 packages a day before you'll get a return phone call. And what they really want is trailers. So they cater to the very, very large shippers. They give them extremely low delivery costs compared to UPS and FedEx because they're using the Postal Service for the final mile of delivery, and of course they're stopping at every house already every day, and they have the best economics. There are no residential or delivery area surcharges that you're used to seeing from UPS and FedEx. And so what we've done with EquaShip is we created a first-mile network to aggregate the volumes from smaller shippers, maybe even 1 package a day, into the same vehicles, in the same trailers with Amazon's packages and everybody else's, so that they can have access to postal consolidation rates. And as a consequence, we're able to provide rates that are 40 to 80% lower than FedEx and UPS residential retail rates for ground delivery, for example. The flip side of it is a slower delivery time. So especially in transportation, you get what you pay for what you get. Lower fuel costs, greener option, no airplanes used. So it is all ground transportation, but the savings are absolutely terrific, and that's what's going to allow small, medium-sized merchants to continue to offer free shipping and not lose their shirts.
Now, you mentioned a term there that our listeners may not be familiar with, and that's postal consolidators. Could you explain to us exactly what that is?
Sure. As you might imagine, UPS and FedEx, they typically stop at about every 20th address in the U.S., and they really don't like residential deliveries because there's gates, there's dogs, people aren't home, very expensive for them. Postal Service, on the other hand, has a built-in, it's a sunk cost. They're going to stop at every single address every single day. And so what happened actually in the late 80s, they created this category called Parcel Select, and it was pretty quiet. Some of the biggest shippers in the country were using them, but we didn't have big shippers like Amazon.com back then. You might have had Sears and those kinds of shippers. And so the idea was that the Postal Service, when you look at their cost structure, it's all in the middle mile. And the first mile, picking up packages are very efficient at, because they stop at every house already, in every business. The middle mile was extremely expensive compared to the private carriers. But the last mile was by far more efficient. So they allowed these what are called parcel select carriers or postal consolidators, they were called zone skippers for a number of years, to pick up merchandise from a major shipper, typically in trailers. They would sort it out, and they would deliver it out to the 5-digit zip code level, all the way down to the final post office for that customer, the neighborhood that customer lives in. And then they'd hand it over to the Postal Service, and from there, Postal Service would deliver it to the residential customer. The overall cost of that is much, much lower. But traditionally, that industry has served large enterprise shippers, and with the boom in e-commerce and the mix of packages now approaching 50-50 being residential deliveries, I mean, it used to be almost entirely business to business. What has happened is Amazon and other major sellers have pushed UPS and FedEx to get into this business. They did through acquisitions since about 2006. FedEx SmartPost, UPS Basic, now it's called UPS SurePost. And they lead the pack now along with DHL Global Mail, Blue Package Delivery, and then there's 9 others. This is a huge industry now, and literally 1 out of 6 parcels in the U.S. Is picked up by a postal consolidator and then handed to the Postal Service at that last postal facility at the 5-digit zip code level typically, and delivered from there. So what we've done is create access for smaller customers who don't have trailers full of those packages every day, and we aggregate them, and our parcels literally travel on the same trucks with Amazon's parcels.
Walk us through the process, Ron, if you would. Hypothetical process. Say I'm an e-commerce merchant. I sell a product. I want to use EquaShip. Do you pick up, just kind of start with picking up a customer order from my place of business and dropping it off at one of my customers?
So the process works very similar to what they're already used to with UPS and FedEx. When a customer signs up with us, we ask them a few questions about pickup. Our pickup fees are they're first of all complimentary. If they ship more than $100 a day, we don't charge anything for pickup. If they have less than $100 a day worth of shipping charges, then it's a $10 pickup fee. Currently, we are focused predominantly on the East Coast, except for the very largest shippers. So on the Eastern Seaboard, west of Chicago, as we have launched out, and we're moving westward constantly. So if a customer calls us today, depending on their volume, if they're not a very large customer, we really are focusing on the East Coast right now, Eastern Seaboard, and moving west over the next few months until we have full national coverage for pickups. But they go online, they generate their labels typically through the same software they're generating. They're managing their website. If they have ShipWorks, for example, certain e-commerce platforms like Vendio have integrated us. So we've been very busy integrating with all the platforms that e-commerce merchants are used to using. And so now we appear as the fourth carrier option. It's been UPS, FedEx, and USPS for years since DHL Home pulled out of the market, and now there's now a new fourth option, and they'll typically see that we are the lowest priced by far compared to other options. Now, we don't try to compete with media mail and library mail and stuff like that, but with bread and butter e-commerce shipments, if they pick us, they print a label for us, they go online to schedule pickups rather. It's all very easy to do through our website. We show up and pick up the packages. From there, they are carried to our sort facilities, and like I said, they are intermingled with other major shippers. It could be Target, could be Amazon, whoever, and then carried all the way through to the final destination facility. And the customer gets it in their mailbox, or postal carrier brings it to their doorstep. About 40% of the time with postal delivery, it ends up in the mailbox because it's a small package. But it gets a full delivery scan code. A lot of people don't know that. USPS has been doing it for years. that you get a full scan code. Literally says it was delivered to the mailbox or to the customer by the postal carrier.
Now, you mentioned if the volume is less than $100 a day, I think it's what you said, there's a $10 pickup fee. You've also alluded to the substantial savings per shipment, per package. Could you give us an indication of those savings, or kind of a hypothetical scenario of what those savings would be for a merchant? You can use a sample product if you'd like.
Well, we always use the assumption that the customer is an eBay top-rated titanium or platinum seller who's at the top tier, tier 6 of the eBay discount program. So when we look at our discounts, we take the assumption that it isn't necessarily the very smallest e-commerce guy. It could be the best, medium-sized e-commerce sellers, again, the best possible deal today. For example, commercial plus rates on postal from USPS, we beat those at a minimum of 22%. Even FedEx SmartPost, there are some e-commerce merchants that FedEx SmartPost will take on. We beat their rates between 24 and 60%. It depends on the weight, obviously, but in the 1 to 5 pound range, 24 to 50%. That's where 85% of the parcels are going to be. And that's a postal consolidator, so that's got to have very high volumes. We'll give them that price for a single package. On FedEx and UPS ground, residential, as I said, 40 to 80% less expensive. Anybody can go to our website at EquaShip.com and download right off the home page, or look at our pricing tables in the pricing tab, or download what we call the Savvy Shipper's Secret Weapon Instruction Manual, which is actually a pricing guide. And they will see dollar-for-dollar comparisons against everything from parcel post to FedEx ground to DHL International. We do have an international service as well coming out next quarter. Priority mail. There are some flat rate products like the flat rate envelopes and flat rate small box that we don't usually compete very well against, but on medium-sized boxes, large boxes, or on the zoned priority mail product, we can be up to 70% less expensive. So they can do a direct lookup of what they ship in there in 2 seconds. Plus, we have some very cool calculator tools on our website that they can use to compare, and it's an interactive graphical calculator. The other thing I should mention, Carrie, is that we are rolling out our national network of drop-off locations. Smaller shippers tend not to want to do pickups because they may have a day job, they're not home, to have a pickup, and for that matter, they don't want to pay the residential pickup fees that FedEx and UPS impose, or they maybe they don't want to leave it on their doorstep, what have you. So they typically will drop it off at a post office or at a UPS store or a FedEx office on the way to work the next day. So we are building out our own network of drop-off locations. There's no minimum limit. There's no extra fees for that, of course. They would just drop it off at what is typically a mail and parcel center or an office supply type of store.
How does a merchant pay for your services? Do they prepay, credit card? Will you send them a bill? How does that work?
It works just like Indicia or Stamps.com, which just about every e-commerce shipper is familiar with. So they put a credit card on file with us, and they set a minimum account balance and then the recharge amount. So it automatically tops off when they hit their minimum account balance, let's say $20, and they can put up to $300 at a time on a credit card charge. If they want to do more than that, they can use an ACH transfer. So it automatically takes care of itself. And one thing I should note that's really very different between EquaShip and how the other carriers tend to work, we have no accessorial fees at all, where FedEx and UPS between them have about 90 surcharges, many of which only appear on your final bill to accounting. You don't even know that you're getting those surcharges. We have none. All our prices are exactly as you see them. There are no dim weight charges, residential delivery fees, rural delivery fees, or address correction fees, or anything like that.
How does it integrate in a shopping cart? Do you offer an API for a merchant that wants to tie in directly? Can there be real-time calculations?
We do. If they go to our homepage, they'll see dozens and dozens of platforms we've already integrated with. So if they're on an e-commerce platform like Volusion that doesn't really have a shipping module, they'll see what software packages like ShipWorks already support us and connect to Volusion. If they're not already using it, it's something they can get a trial copy of right off our website. So we've already got all the big platforms covered. If you're an eBay seller, Amazon seller, lots and lots of platforms are either already integrated or will be integrated in the next few months. And we also have our own API available, because the bigger the player gets, very often they've written their own software, so they want to do their own API. We've had lots of customers doing that as well. It's pretty straightforward. Our typical integration is 2 weeks compared to like 6 months for a FedEx integration, so it's very easy to employ. They can also, I should mention, I'm sorry, Kerry, that you can also, of course, go to our website at EquaShip.com and use the software that's there. There's no cost to that. And it's great up to a certain volume. If you're doing 150 packages a day, you really want to be using a package like a ShipWorks, for example. But we do provide a free portal right on our website.
Let's change directions, Ron, just for a sec, and talk about potential competitors. The first thing that came to mind when I saw your service was fulfillment companies to me, or one of the first things, in that the point you make on aggregating multiple merchants to get volume discounts is a similar point made by third-party fulfillment companies. And I'm wondering, does your service threaten third-party fulfillment companies?
No, not at all. We've heard from a lot of them since we've launched, and what we hear a lot of is that they very often, it varies by company, but they very often let the merchant choose whether they want to use their own account or they want to join sort of the group account from the fulfillment company. With the exception of Fulfillment by Amazon, it's a whole different story. Most 3PL, fulfillment houses give customers the option. What we're hearing, at least when the ones have contacted us, is that most of their customers use their own accounts. And there are certain sweet spots, like anything that hits dimensional weight. We are always going to beat FedEx and UPS by a mile, and even Priority Mail by a mile, no matter how good their discount is, because we don't have a dim weight function, or accessorial fee. So they'll use us for that or for international, despite having a big discount with FedEx or UPS. But most of the time, we're hearing that the customer often specifies, no, we want things going through our own FedEx account or UPS account, and they are not joining a group rate. Also, FedEx and UPS are not as keen as they once were to get those group rate deals, and they're not renewing a lot of them. Like industry associations used to have big discounts for their members, and they're not renewing them. They're handling them on a customer-by-customer basis, where we have one rate for everybody. There is no discount for anybody, and it's a much, much lower rate. It's a lot easier to use us, and you don't have to deal with all the discounts and the it's 30 different elements to a contract when you're talking about what your discount is. Well, what's your minimum ground charge? What's your discount at this tier? What's your discount on air? We keep it really, really simple. One price table.
Are there merchants that don't fit your model? Are there merchants that would not benefit from EquaShip that you can think of?
Yes, there are merchants that ship nothing but DVDs using media rate all day, and that's a subsidized rate. It's something that the post office still provides. It's a fantastic deal for folks who are shipping pure media. So we don't try to compete with that. As I mentioned, priority mail letters and priority mail small box depends on the weight. We don't compete with as well. On the other hand, we have customers who use us just because of our insurance. So we're the only parcel carrier to offer real insurance, real what's called open peril insurance on parcels. There are no other carriers. UPS, Postal Service, FedEx, all provide what's called DV coverage, declared value coverage, that merchants are all familiar with. What DV coverage is that it just raises, when you buy a premium of DV coverage, you're just raising their contractual limitation on things that they will accept. But, of course, it's subject to exclusions like fragile items, anything with glass, anything with electronics. And a classic example is a merchant ships a package, and FedEx says they delivered it to the doorstep. Customer comes home, it's not there. FedEx says, you haven't proven our negligence. We are not honoring this claim. And with our insurance, that's covered. If the customer didn't get it, that's actually covered. It's insured. And so a lot of customers will use us just for that. As a matter of fact, we even offer USPS priority mail and express mail with our EquaSurance coverage built in as well. And merchants who buy their postage from us are getting about the same price as commercial base rate, are doing so because we have this fantastic insurance coverage. We include $100 of real insurance coverage with every package. And the other thing that's different is that when you file a claim for declared value coverage, you have to argue with the carrier about what the true value of the product is. And we don't have that issue because we set the value to the merchant's invoice to their customer. So whatever they sold it for to their customer, that's the value. I'm not going to come back and say, sorry, that $500 art print was really $10 in canvas and $5 in oil, so we're only going to give you $15 on it. It'll get the full $500 refunded, and we include the shipping charges. If a package is damaged or lost, it's automatically included in your claim payout, and the whole process only takes about 3 weeks instead of what can be months with the other carriers. So that's a big reason why somebody who may not, if they're shipping media right today, but it's valuable stuff and they are absorbing the losses because they know they can't ever get a claim paid, or they don't want to pay a minimum of $2.40 for insurance coverage, we include it for free for the first 100.
I got to interrupt
Yep.
you here, Ron. Let's move on to another question on background on EquaShip. Tell us a little bit about EquaShip. When was it founded? Who owns it? Where is it located? Revenues, profits, that sort of thing.
Sure. We were founded about 2.5 years ago by a group of people who came out of the e-commerce space as well as the logistics industry, ex-FedEx, Postal Service, UPS, and DHL folks. We're funded by private investors, some angel investors, but also we have our largest investor is a Fortune 500 company called Newell, which happens to own Indicia.com, and so they're very familiar with this space. And we have a very tight relationship with Indicia and USPS, a strategic relationship all the way around as a consequence of that. We are a private company, so we don't disclose our revenues or profits, but we are well-backed, so let's just say.
How many customers? Do you disclose how many customers you have?
We do not disclose any of those kinds of statistics.
Are you profitable? Do you disclose that?
No.
Okay. We've got another minute or so here. Anything else on your mind for our listeners, of course, who are e-commerce merchants?
Yeah, I think what people really need to understand about us is that we built this company very specifically not to take enterprise customers. If they look at the last 25 years and how it's gone from everybody shipping for the same price when the industry was regulated. Once it was deregulated, FedEx and UPS have been in a race to the bottom, giving 80+% discounts to the biggest shippers and raising rates 7 to 10% per year effectively to small and medium-sized customers. So this created this enormous delta. Law of unintended consequences, here comes e-commerce, and the whole ecosystem is threatened for small and medium-sized shippers to survive online. And so part of our business strategy is don't take enterprise customers. You will not have to subsidize big discounts you give them by charging so much more of little customers. That's primarily how we're able to achieve the economics that we have.
Okay. Well, for purposes of our listeners, we've been visiting with Ron Weiner. Ron is the CEO of EquaShip. That site is EquaShip.com. Let me spell that. That's EQUASHIP, EquaShip.com. And Ron Weiner, we want to thank you for your time today, sir.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Gary.
That's all the time we have for this week's e-commerce conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tune in next week for another new episode.